What's up, everybody? Today's video is when football clubs are owned by fans. The German 50+1 rule explained. My name is Greg, an American living abroad in Spain, learning the beautiful game of football one reaction at a time with your help. We're heading towards 50,000? Yeah, eventually one day. But right now, we're heading towards 5,000 subscribers. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you can be a part of my brain trust and help me learn all there is to know about football. All right, so this is Fiago, and this is a recommendation by my man Marcel. He thought this would be a good one for me to check out, and this is one of the reasons. Some people may or may not like this, but I'm like leaning towards choosing a German team because I like, for the most part, a lot of the corporations are not involved. I know that there are, I don't know what I'm saying. I mean, I know what I'm trying to say. I just don't know if it's 100% accurate that, most of the clubs don't have corporations in them. I think that's what the 50+1 rule is. You know what? Maybe we should watch it. How about that? All right, so I'm going to include a link in the description so you can go and show Mr. Fiago some love. He has 694,000 subscribers, but I think we could definitely get him another at least couple thousand. So go ahead over there and do that. I'm sure he would appreciate it. All right, here we go. Let's see what this is all about. All right, let's go.
After all the Super League drama, many fans have realized that the beautiful game is not safe yet. Football needs radical change, and a ton of ideas and concepts have been thrown around over the last weeks. And there is one certain concept that is
You said over the last weeks, and this was 4 years ago, so I'm sure some of this information might be outdated.
especially stands out. The concept that we are talking about is the so-called 50+1 rule, also known as the German 50+1 rule. 50+1 also exists in Sweden, and Portuguese football has a similar rule too, but today we're going to focus on the German system, since this is by far the most prominent version of 50+1. So in the following minutes I will explain to you what exactly the German 50+1 rule is, what are the negatives, what are the positives, and in the end I will give you my personal opinion on the question if we should actually implement 50+1 in all of football or not, and also...
Interesting. I guess I didn't know it was in Sweden and Portugal. I did not know that, so that's good to know.
The question if we should actually implement 50+1 in all of football or not, and also why. So let's get straight into it. So the 50+1 rule was implemented in German football back in 1998, and it states that every single club who wants to play in the Bundesliga must have 50% plus at least one share of the club owned by the club itself. And when I say the club must be owned by the club itself, it might sound a bit confusing, but what I mean by that is essentially it is owned by the club's members. Yep, in many countries, you as fan can actually become a member of...
Okay. My friend told me, Marcel told me that he was the member of one of the clubs there. So this is what he meant. I didn't realize that.
Members. Yep, in many countries, you as fan can actually become a member of your favorite club. And to become such a member of a club in Germany, you have to pay an annual fee of around 30 to 60 euros, depending on the club. And with that membership, you also get certain benefits at your club. Club members in Germany, for example, always get early access to tickets, they get access to certain events, and most importantly, they also get the voting right at their club. Yep, as crazy as it may sound for some of you, the fact that clubs under 50+1 have more than 50% of themselves owned by their own fans means that those fans also decide on important matters regarding the club, and they always have the majority in votes. And the whole 50+1 rule was mainly designed to prevent investors from buying whole clubs and putting their own financial interests over those of the fans.
Well, that's interesting. So, I mean, is there like a time frame that they have votes, like, or do they have to call a vote? I'm just curious, like, what do they vote on usually? Is it major things? Is it what kind of concession stands that we're gonna have? Actually, I don't even know. I'm assuming they have concession stands. So is it stuff like that? Like, what kind of stuff do they vote on? And I'm guessing each member votes. There's probably not someone who represents the members. I don't know. I'm just curious how that part works. So the fans have majority of votes, No investor can control the club. Okay, $30 to $60 per year to be a member. And is there a cap on the amount of members they have? Like in the US, they have like season tickets, and I believe there's obviously a maximum amount of season tickets that they can sell. So I'm just wondering that.
Investors from buying whole clubs and putting their own financial interests over those of the fans. So with the 50+1 rule, no investor can control your football club. They can only own maximum 49.99999%. You get it, but they can never have the majority in votes. So now you know what 50+1 is about. Let's talk about the positives and the negatives. We are starting off with the pros. First of all, the most obvious effect of 50+1 is that it gives the power back to the fans. This recent photo of Arsenal fans protesting outside of the Emirates against their owner Kroenke says a lot, and it is not a rarity in English football. Man United, Liverpool, Arsenal, the fans of the three biggest English clubs, and many others actually want their owners out because they don't think that those owners care about the interests of the club. Well, German football has its problems, but this has never been one of them, because it's simply impossible with 50+1. No football club can be owned by greedy billionaires that simply see the club as a pure investment and don't care about the fans, about the city, and about the club's history.
But didn't RB Leipzig do something like that, if I remember correctly?
Pure investment and don't care about the fans, about the city, and about the club's history. 50+1 ensures that a club is always led by an elected board with an elected president that can always be dropped by the fans at any time if they don't fulfill their expectations. And that is being done in so-called member meetings. Those happen every single year on a regular basis, and if the fans are
That's crazy. So an elected board, elected president. So that means, this is my American mind thinking here. So do they have like campaigns and, people explain why they want to be the president of the club? Or that's super interesting.
So-called member meetings. Those happen every single year on a regular basis, and if the fans are really dissatisfied with what is going on at their club right now, they can also call for additional sudden member meetings to do things like electing a new president. For those meetings, all club members are invited to meet up at a single location that can, for example, be the club stadium. In this picture, for example, you see a recent meeting of Hamburg members. I am a Hamburg member too, I could have been there, and for German fans it's rather common that if you support a club, you are also a member of that club. It happens quite often that your parents actually start your membership right when you are born. And because
What? That's awesome. Oh my God. It just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. Like, the involvement in your connection to the club just gets so, when you're born, you can't even say football. And you are a member, and you're probably a member for life. That's awesome.
quite often that your parents actually start your membership right when you are born. And because members actually have a say in what's going on at the club, it is no surprise that German clubs have quite a lot of members. Bayern are the #1 club with the most paying members in the whole world of football, with 293,000 members. And both Schalke and Dortmund are also in the top 10 with 155k and 154k members. It is notable that all of these three have more members than any English, any French or any Italian side. Because in England, Italy and France, members actually have nothing to say. Let's get to the next positive of the 50+1 rule, and that would be that most of the time you have your own legends running your club. Yep, think about it, because in 50+1 the members, the fans, vote for the board, for the president, for all important positions in your club. People who want to get into these positions actually need a good reputation among the fans. So if you want to become a president or a board member, you can't just be a scammy, greedy guy who doesn't care about the club. You must actually have the club's and the fans' best interests as your #1 priority. Otherwise, you won't even get elected, or you will just get dropped after a few months. And here, obviously, former legends, former players of the club, they have the club in their hearts, they care about the club, and that is why in German football, it happens so often that these guys actually run the club. Again, take Bayern as an example. They have been run by the likes of Franz Beckenbauer, Karl-Heinz Rummenigge and Uli Hoeneß over the last decades, all former players and all legends of the club. In addition, legendary goalkeeper Oliver Kahn just became a Bayern board member too, and he might end up as their future next president, who knows? So just imagine Thierry Henry being the chairman of Arsenal, Jamie Carragher running Liverpool, and Roy Keane being the CEO of Man United. Well, maybe not Roy Keane, maybe Gary Neville, but wouldn't that be cool? If they actually have the knowledge and skills, that is for sure, but there are definitely ex-players and legends that do have the skills, just don't have the chance in English football right now because they don't own the club. And the last but very important...
Wow. Man, that just kind of sucks for English fans.
Don't have the chance in English football right now because they don't own the club. And the last but very important side effect of 50+1 is that it has absolutely kept football in Germany very, very fan-friendly. And by a fan-friendly game, I actually mean the matchday experience itself. Because the club fan bases are so powerful and own their clubs, it also happens quite a lot that all the club fan bases unite against the league itself. If the Bundesliga, for example, or the German Football Association wants to propose changes that the fans don't like, and thus the fans have mostly managed to keep German football very traditional and very down to earth. Some achievements of German football fans in the past are, for example, safe standing. Yes, you can actually stand in German football stadiums, and those areas where fans stand are always the most passionate sections in any German football stadium with the greatest atmosphere. Other achievements by German football fans are, for example, that you can smoke and most importantly, drink beer in the stands. That is very important for German fans. And I think the best effect of 50+1 regarding the fan-friendly game is definitely the low ticket prices that German football has. Let's just use our great example FC Bayern again. A season ticket at the Allianz Arena only costs around 20 euros per game. That is basically nothing, and the demand for more is there as well. There is around 80,000 people on the waiting list for those, but due to the fact that the club is owned by the fans itself, they just don't want to increase it massively. On the other side, we take an example from the Premier League, our good old Arsenal, and a season ticket at the Emirates costs...
So that's interesting. I mean, I wonder where they get the money for the players that they purchase or whatever. Is it from, like, they call it gate revenue, this 20 euros? Is it from that, or like where else do they get the money? Because the members of the club can be faced with, if we raise this from 20 euros to, 40 or 50, then that gives us more revenue to go out and get better players and something. I don't know. I'm just wondering.
Costs around 40 euros per game, and that is still the cheapest option at Arsenal. Normally you will end up paying like 50 or 60 euros per game. So for the same price that an Arsenal fan pays to get one season ticket for his club, a Bayern fan can easily buy 2 or 3 for his family. Another great effect of 50+1. But just like most things, 50+1 also has its negative aspects. So let us talk about the cons. First of all, the most obvious aspect, of course, clubs will have less money. If the investor can only buy 49.999 instead of 100% of the club, he will not be willing to invest and pay as much. That is simple economics. If you've always wondered why basically no Bundesliga club except for Bayern can keep their world-class players on a long-term basis, here is your answer. German teams fully rely on the revenue they generate.
Okay, well then why can Bayern keep theirs? Because he said everybody has a problem except for Bayern, so I wonder why not.
Plus players on a long-term basis, here is your answer. German teams fully rely on the revenue they generate themselves, and that is why most of them don't have as much money as, for example, the English clubs. But I don't see this as a real argument, because we are talking about if the rules should be implemented in all of European football or even in all of world football. So then everyone will have 50+1 and everyone will have the same conditions, so no one really has an advantage or a disadvantage. So you get me, there will be less money, but it won't be a problem if that is for everyone. But the next con argument is far more serious, and that is the fact that there are sadly still loopholes in the German 50+1.
Son of a... I knew about this one.
And that is the fact that there are sadly still loopholes in the German 50+1 rule. We just have to look at RB Leipzig, who are a German club in the Bundesliga under the 50+1 rule, yet they are fully owned by Red Bull. How did they do that? Well, officially they are owned by their members, but the thing is they only have 17 members because they just set the member fee, that is usually around 30 to 60 euros, extremely high to the thousands of euros every year, and that is why they only have 17 voting members.
What the hell? Did I hear that right? 17 members? Wait. Hold on. Let me listen to this again.
Everyone will have the same conditions, so no one really has an advantage or a disadvantage. So you get me, there will be less money, but it won't be a problem if that is for everyone. But the next con argument is far more serious, and that is the fact that there are sadly still loopholes in the German 50+1 rule. We just have to look at RB Leipzig, who are a German club in the Bundesliga under the 50+1 rule, yet they are fully owned by Red Bull. How did they do that? Well, officially they are owned by their members, but the thing is they only have 17 members because they just set the member fee, that is usually around 30 to 60
I see.
euros, extremely high to the thousands of euros every year, and that is why they only have 17 voting members, and most of them are Red Bull employees.
What? That's crazy. Okay. Wait, most of them? As if that's a lot. I mean, what, most of 17 might be like 12 or 13 that are Red Bull employees. So let me guess. They're going to vote the same way the Red Bull votes. So that means that So does that mean that those 17 or whatever, they will just get outvoted by the 49%? I don't know. I wonder how that works.
What a coincidence. There is also an exception to 50+1 that if one investor has supported a club for over 20 years, backed it financially, always loved the club, whatever, then the German Football League can decide to grant this investor the right to fully take over this club. This has happened for Hoffenheim, Wolfsburg and Leverkusen, for example. So some people do criticize the German 50+1 rule because of these loopholes and exceptions. And the last negative...
Well, what's the point of that? That doesn't make sense. So all you got to do as an investor is just hold out and wait 20 years. And what if you get a whole league of investors that just stick around for 20 years? Then you could all of a sudden have a league of investors. That's weird.
People do criticize the German 50+1 rule because of these loopholes and exceptions. And the last negative point here is not an argument that criticizes the 50+1 rule itself, but some people just say that it is now simply not realistic to implement because it is already too late. So many European elite clubs are already fully owned by huge investors, and it will be extremely hard to reverse this. Because to implement this 50+1 rule everywhere, we would essentially have to force these owners to sell more than 50% of their stakes in their clubs to the fans. Not only would that be financially tough, it would also be legally difficult to force the Glazers to sell a majority of Man United, to force Kroenke to sell Arsenal, to force Fenway Sports Group to sell Liverpool, force Milan and Inter's Chinese owners to sell a majority in those clubs, and also to force Abramovich to sell a part of Chelsea, Sheikh Mansour to sell a part of his Manchester City, and force Qatar to sell PSG? Especially since the fans of some clubs like Chelsea, Man City or PSG actually like their owners and don't even want the control over their club themselves.
Wow.
So yes, it would have been a lot easier to implement 50+1 30 years ago, but now it is really difficult. And now, as promised, it is time for my personal opinion. Do we need 50+1 in all of football? Okay. I'm going to keep it simple here, guys. I am German myself, I am a member of a 50+1 club myself, so that means I can report firsthand on what 50+1 is actually like. And honestly, I have to say that the positive aspects in this video are true and they are really important. It really does give the power back to us fans. It does give us fans a deeper connection with our clubs, since we are basically the clubs. All this drama that fans in England or other countries have to go through about how the owner doesn't give a shit about the club, the owner doesn't care about the fans, the owner doesn't treat the club well, it doesn't exist under 50+1 because there are no owners. You know the exceptions, but there are more or less no owners, to simplify it. If the president sucks, we simply drop him, we elect a new president, a new board. And without 50+1, German football would not be what it is in terms of atmosphere, in terms of fan bases. It is simply electrifying. And if you really had those billionaire owners in Germany, I don't think that would even work in Germany because the fans are so passionate. I couldn't even imagine living without 50+1. But I know it is a normal thing for people outside of Germany. But don't get me wrong, guys, I am definitely not saying that the German 50+1 rule is perfect, because it's not. There are loopholes, there are ways to avoid the rule. There would have to be adaptations made to the rule in order to implement it in all of football. But do I think it should be implemented? Absolutely. Absolutely yes. But now the very, very important point. Is it realistic? And there I have to say, sadly, not really. Not in 2021, where most of the elite clubs are already owned by billionaire owners, and the clubs themselves are worth a couple billions of euros. So if we stay realistic, my verdict, we need 50+1, but it's highly unlikely that we'll get it. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't fight for it, because I think spring 2021, right after the Super League disaster where we are right now, this is really a crucial point for the future of football, for the whole world of football. Because if we don't act right now, if we don't use this Super League thing as a warning and fight for radical change in the whole football system, then there is absolutely no way that we can still save football, sadly. If we don't get a system like 50+1 right now, it doesn't have to be 50+1, it can be a similar system, but a system like 50+1 or a salary cap right now, such things, if we don't get these things right now and fight for them, then football, in my opinion, is lost forever. It will further drift away from its core values, and the foundation of a Super League will eventually be inevitable.
Well, that's super interesting because this was in 2021. It is now 2025. And I think I know what he's talking about. I'll have to watch a video on that Super League because I think I have an idea of what that was. But I mean, is he saying, is what he's saying already happened? Like, I know they didn't do the Super League, I don't think, but there's no salary cap. So if what he's saying is important, it needs to happen, and it hasn't happened, does that mean it's gotten worse?
After all, if you ask me, implementing a system like 50+1 right now is an incredibly tough task, but it is still one worth fighting for. Because after all, the best time for this was 20 years ago, the second best time is right now. This was my little explanation plus opinion on 50+1. No, that's 5. Anyway, I want to know your opinion now. Do you think we need 50+1 right now? Do you think we need a similar system? What is your opinion on this whole thing? So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm seeing you guys down in this comment section. Always interesting debates in there. And obviously also next Sunday in the next video. Fiago's out. Peace.
All right, Fiago, that was a good video. So, I mean, I totally see how the atmosphere is on another level in Germany. I mean, if people are paying $30, $60, it's just like when I was little, probably some people here, we had a little neighborhood club that we paid some dues. It was like $5 a month. I don't know, whatever. I mean, you just felt invested in it, so I can imagine if you're paying $30, $60 and you go to a place where everybody who is a member there paid the same thing, and you just feel like it's because of you that that club exists. So it's like a part of who you are. It's just on a different level because it's like it's your team and you have some say in how that team is shaped. I think it's awesome. I think in the US, I think the Green Bay Packers in the American football, I think they're owned by the fans. I'm not sure. I mean, football was not my favorite sport when I was there. It was like basketball, baseball. Now it's switched baseball, basketball, and then American football. So I don't know. But I think the Green Bay Packers, they have that situation where they're owned by the fans. But I just don't think it's very common over there. Anyway, that was a good video there, Mr. Fiago. I definitely appreciate that. And before you get out of here, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, like the video so we can go ahead and have Mr. and Mrs. YouTube do its thing and push this video out there and help grow the channel so we can bring you better content, traveling around Europe, going to different stadiums, things like that. That's where I want to go. That's kind of my idea. All right. It would be so good for the fans to see ex-legends as board members. All right, great explanation, Fiago. Keep up the good work, my friend. Amazing video, Fiago. I, being a Bayern fan, never knew so much in details about the 50+1 rule, and now I can make sense of why the fans protested against Dietmar Hopp in the game against Hoffenheim. Ooh, I think I know about that. I think we made a video about that here. So, all right, it's awesome. Hey, I forgot to say, thanks, Marcel. You did a good job. All right, as always, thanks for stopping by, and we will see you on the next video. Peace.